Hi everyone, my name is Sarah Mari. I'm one of the librarians at Portland Public Library in Portland, Maine, and I'm here to continue our read aloud, The Accidental Adventures of India McAllister, written by Maine author Charlotte Agell and published by Christie Ottaviano Books, part of Henry Holt and Company. We're going to pick up with Chapter 6, Amanda Roden is Not Perfect, where we just ended. India was spending the weekend at her dad's house with Richard, but unfortunately her dad had to go work, which was really upsetting to her, but she had decided to try to be charitable to Richard. Chapter 6, Amanda Roden is Not Perfect. I do not stay charitable for long. One of the reasons I hate Amanda Roden is she's such a girl. I'm a girl too, of course, but I'm not the same kind of girl. Like last Thursday, I was walking on the other side of the street since I never walk on the sidewalks right next to her house. She was out there doing cartwheels all over the place, showing off as usual. Jacob was there with her. He's one of Colby's brother, and he's okay, but he's a lot older than we are. 6th grade. That's why he's cool enough for Amanda to hang out with. So Miss Cartwheel Queen stops doing cartwheels, and I can tell that she sees me. "Hey, India," yells Jacob, but Amanda doesn't say anything. I give the world's smallest wave, to Jacob only, and I keep walking. And then I hear Amanda in a totally loud voice say, "Do you know any girls who like spiders?" She's flicking something out of her hair. "Ew, gross." It's probably a leaf, although I hope it's an ultra sticky spider web. The thing is that I'm really into spiders, and she knows it. I brought in my collection in 3rd grade. There are a lot of little dead dry spiders and one big live wool spider with fat hairy legs. I let that one go practically the same day. He was a bit too jumpy. My teacher last year, Mrs. Gerber, thought it was great, but Amanda didn't. Even back when she wasn't totally evil, she made it clear that she didn't even want to look at poor Wolfie. Obviously, she's saying that spider thing to get to me, and so Jacob will laugh and protect her from some poor innocent Daddy Longlegs on her front lawn. Daddy Longlegs aren't even actually technically spiders. It's totally pathetic. I wish a dozen amazing arachnids would spin webs into the rodent's yard and that she'd walk straight into them. It wouldn't be great for the spiders, I guess, but they're used to rebuilding. She's just another natural disaster to them. I try to ignore the rodent, and it's almost easy. I'm on my way to meet Colby. We're going to go up in the tree. That's why I don't have Tofu with me, since he'd give us away. It's the crab apple on the corner of Main and Elm at the edge of the pharmacy parking lot. It's a great tree. First of all, it has low branches so that you can get up in it pretty easily. And at this time of year, it's thick with blossoms and bees, so nobody can see you unless you know they're there, but you can see them through the gaps. Passerbys walk right under you so you can hear anything they might be saying. It's a great way to spy on people. It might rain later, is usually about as interesting as it gets, but it still feels all secret and cool to be up there, and perfumey from all the blossoms. When I get to the tree, Colby's already up in the branches. I know because his bike is leaning on the far fence. The trick is climbing up without anyone noticing. In a town as quiet as this one, it's not that hard. I wait while 2 cars pass, and then I pull myself up onto the lowest branch. "Hey, India," Colby says from above. "I saw your brother at the rodent's house," I tell him. He shrugs. He doesn't ask which brother, although, so I figure that this isn't the first time she's hung out with Jacob. Colby and I sit there for a long time, not saying much. The wind swishes on the trees. The fire engine roars by with its siren on. Finally, some innocent victims come by. It's Mrs. Snow from the bank. My mom always says hi to her. Mrs. Snow and somebody else. Somebody else is talking right as the 2 ladies walk 3 feet under our very noses. They don't look up. Hardly anyone does. It almost makes me feel sorry for the sky. And then he told me that anyone who ate pickled herring was his kind of person. So we have, and then we can't hear anymore. They walk fast for oldish ladies. What does pickled herring have to do with anything? Right when we're about to climb back down because it's so boring, who should come strolling down the sidewalk but the rodent. She's got her sidekick Melanie with her. Melanie's okay, except for when she's anywhere near Amanda, and then she becomes instantly annoying. They're whispering as if they're talking about something secret, even though nobody else is around, except us. They stop right under our tree. Colby looks at me and I look at him. We're both absolutely quiet, even though a big fat laugh is trying to burst itself out of me. Colby, too. I can tell by looking at him, which is what I'm trying not to do. I hardly breathe. It's not my fault, Amanda giggles. I only did it 'cause they did. That's right, Melanie agrees. Of course she'd agree with anything the rodent said. Finders keepers, losers weepers, Amanda snickers. Definitely, says Melanie. It's yours now. This will totally get the police on me, though, laughs the rodent. I know it, squeals Melanie, who lets Amanda pull her arm around her, but doesn't quite dare put hers around Amanda. That's 'cause Melanie by herself really isn't that popular. The police, says Colby, when we can't see them anymore. We jump out of the tree and just stand there looking at each other. Now what? I say, thinking we'll have some serious detective work to do. I think I'll go home for dinner, Colby says, and that sounds like the dumbest idea I've ever heard, till I remember that he has 2 brothers and 3 sisters, so there will be a lot of talking. Maybe one of them knows something. Jacob, for instance. He was hanging out with the main suspect, after all. Now all we have to do is figure out the crime. I go home to eat with Mom and Tofu, or possibly just Tofu, if Mom's stuck in a painting again. Sometimes I wish that I had a big family, too. Call me when you get done, I tell him as he rides off. Okay, says Colby. See you later. But after dinner, he doesn't call, and neither do I. Once in a while, I feel shy, and that's really weird. Colby's been my friend since we both wore diapers, but now that we're in 4th grade, people say stupid stuff. How's your handsome boyfriend? Asks my otherwise very nice neighbor, Mrs. Ordnance. And I can't stand that. He's not my boyfriend. He's just my friend. But I still get embarrassed. I decide to sit in my beanbag chair and read. Tofu loves it when I do that because I usually have popcorn. But what I'm really doing is thinking, why would the police be after the rodent? She thinks she's queen of everything. Maybe she was really mean and horrifying to someone. She ignores you whenever she wants, but they can't arrest you for that, can they? At 10, my mother comes in to tell me she's figured out how the color orange is going to work in her new piece and to please turn my light off. Good thing it's not a school night, but I can't sleep. It's too hot, especially for May. Tofu keeps snoring, and my mind is worrying. I spend a long time not being able to sleep, till I finally get up and go sit on our porch swing. Tofu wakes up instantly and comes with me. That dog can go from the deepest dream to wide awake in 1 second. The street's quiet. Everything looks different at night. Sometimes it looks scary, but tonight it looks magical. The air is purple and soft, and the foggy sky comes down almost to the ground. I walk around the wet grass in my nightgown. There's a light on next to the door, even though I'm pretty sure it's after midnight. Mrs. Ordnance doesn't always sleep well. Too many memories is what she told me. I guess they're the sad kind. Still, I'm glad that someone else is up. Then I hear it. At first, I think it might be like a little lost kitten, but Tofu would have found it by now. He likes to play with cats, even though they're not always thrilled. But it's not an animal. It's a person, and that person is crying. I creep over to the window and stand on my toes trying to see. It's Mrs. Ordnance herself, which doesn't surprise me, since she lives alone and hardly anyone ever has any visitors, except for me and her bridge club. She's hunched over in her kitchen table, and her shoulders rise up and sag down. This isn't crying, it's sobbing, and I don't know what to do. Tofu doesn't either, so he starts howling. And before I know it, Mrs. Ordnance is wiping her eyes and opening the window to look. I don't want to run off and creep her out so she sees us. Sorry, Mrs. Ordnance, I couldn't sleep. That doesn't explain why I'm looking in her window, of course. Tofu wags his tail. When he sees Mrs. O, he thinks of cookies. Oh, honey, says Mrs. Ordnance, I can't sleep either. Maybe you could come in for some hot milk, and then we could both try again. If it was anyone else, I'd have to wake Mom and tell her. But it's Mrs. O. She's practically my aunt. Okay, I said, and Tofu comes too. He's always invited to Mrs. O's house. We sit up drinking hot milk, not as bad as it sounds, and eating oatmeal cookies. For a person who lives alone, she sure does a lot of baking. I'm upset, India, Mrs. O explains. That's what I love about her. She talks to me as if I'm her friend, not just a kid. I lost my purse, sometime yesterday. Her wrinkled face looks tired. Downtown, she sighs. It's not the bag I care about, or even my wallet and the money, but my photos, India, all my photos. She's shown me those photos more than once. She's always looking at them. They're pictures of her mother and father and sister, people who aren't alive anymore. I think they died in some kind of a war. Her husband's in there too. He had a heart attack a long time ago. I never met him. She keeps the photos in her wallet so they'll always be close to her. Here's her dad, her mom. Her sister was only 16 when she died. Mrs. O and her husband when they were young. I asked the police to look, but what can I do? I'm merely an old lady with a lost purse. They have bigger cases to crack. I think for a moment. This is Wolfgang. What bigger cases? It'll be okay, Mrs. O. Let's get to bed and we'll work on it in the morning. I put my arm around her the way that Amanda did with Melanie, and then it hits me. There could be a connection here. The next morning, which is only a few hours later, I'm out of bed and out of the house before breakfast. I have to talk to Colby. I think Amanda found the purse. Didn't she say something about finders keepers? And the loser is definitely weeping. Colby isn't awake, though. He likes to sleep. I like to sleep too, but not when I'm involved in a major criminal case. You and I are going to the police, Tofu, I tell my trusty assistant. They've got to know. That's how I find myself walking to the police station. I remember coming here on a second grade field trip. The officer at the desk is George's mom. George is in my class. His mother smiles at me. India, she says. What brings you there? What brings you here? I think I know who stole Mrs. Ordonance's purse, I blurt out. Before I can yell, Amanda Roden, George's mom interrupts me. What lovely timing you have, India. She smiles at me. The purse was turned in this morning. The custodian at the library found it in their parking lot. He would have brought it over to Mrs. Ordonance herself, but he was on his way to visit his daughter in New Hampshire. She continues smiling at me as if this is the best news in the world. And it is good news, but also bad news, because I'm wrong. Do you want me to call Mrs. Ordonance to see if she'd like you to bring it to her? I nod, and when Tofu and I walk into Mrs. O's door 15 minutes later, I do feel sort of heroic. Mrs. O gives me a great big hug. She immediately opens the purse and hands me $1, but I don't take it. It's okay, Mrs. O, I say. I didn't find your purse. I don't need a reward. Dollars are nice, but I don't deserve one. I'm not really a hero. I'm a loser. I was about to turn Amanda in, and she didn't have anything to do with this. Later on, when I'm sulking in the tree all by myself, who should walk by like a bad rerun? Melanie and Amanda. The rodents all decked out in some kind of sparkly, low-cut, glamorous supermodel shirt. I love it, Amanda, gushes Melanie, even if you took it from the junior high lost and found. I don't know, says the rodent. Are you sure? Absolutely, says Melanie. It's so sparkly. The rodent giggles. I'll probably get arrested by the fashion police. They keep walking and giggling, and it's a lucky thing that I don't fall out of the tree from the stupidity of it. The fashion police? How could she be so dumb? Later I ask my mom about it. Who are they exactly? Oh, honey, Mom laughs. They're not real police. It's just an expression. It means your friends or acquaintances tell you that you're wearing something unsuitable. How could I be so dumb? Stupid shoes, but what if somebody likes them? A possibly bad cap, though I like it. Chapter 7. Tofu's Early Morning Adventure. I wake up before 5 o'clock on the first day of June. It's Saturday. I don't actually have to get up since Dad isn't coming until later. Colby and his family are away for the weekend. Not that he'd be up. The clock says 4:45 a.m. Who gets up this early except for hunters and babies? Maybe fishermen. I go back to sleep. I try to go back to sleep, but I can't. I realize why. It's Tofu. He's not on my bed. Not only that, he's howling, the way he does at the moon and all the squirrels he can't get, and sometimes invisible whatever. I race down the stairs. I don't want Mom to wake up. She's kind of a nutcase if she's been painting half the night and then has to get up early. What my mom is capable of doing when she's a nutcase. Burning toast, getting rubber bands stuck in her hair because she can't find hair ties, and much more. Tofu is out on the sun porch, howling away as if he has a deep, deep longing, or possibly a toothache. What is it? I ask him, stroking his ears. Of course he doesn't tell me. He does stop howling, but he's still squirming like crazy. I don't know whether to let him out, because that's what he wants, or not let him out, in case what he has a deep, deep longing for is a porcupine or a skunk. I decide that we'll go out together with him on a leash. Tofu looks at me. If he could really talk, he'd say, "What is this strange object?" That's because we hardly ever have to put the leash on him. The morning is still chilly since the sun is only just began to rise. A mist hangs over the lawn and hides the lilac bush. I can smell the lilacs though, and it reminds me that summer is really coming. Even though there's no school, summer is one of my favorite times of year. There's more ice cream, for example, and adventures. It's possible that I'm going to go on an adventure right now. Tofu leads the way. He's a dog with a purpose. First, he sniffs the entire length of the garden, from the stone wall to the early tulips. Then he drags me to Mrs. O's house and smells everything over there, mostly her wheelbarrow and the front steps. He adds a little statement of his own to his favorite fire hydrant. Then he cocks his head like he's listening very hard, and we're off down Buckle Street so fast that I have to run. Dogs can smell better than people can see. What Tofu can probably smell? A candy wrapper from far away, the trail of a snail on a blade of grass, hiding mice, and worse things, but he likes those. Tofu keeps his nose down and leads us by all the sleepy houses. Now that I'm more awake, it's good to be up so early. The world is more private, like a painting that only Tofu and I are walking around in. Then a car drives down the street and the painting comes to life. It's a station wagon that I've never seen before. A woman leans out the window and throws a newspaper onto the Andersons' porch. She skips the Rudwell's house, but throws one onto Mrs. Ordnance's front step. The lady's got wicked good aim, and hardly even slows down to make the toss. She should probably play professional baseball or something. We wave at each other, and then she's gone. By now we're at the end of the street, where Buckle turns into a dead end. It's the beginning of the big woods that pretty much surrounds Wolfgang in any direction you take. Tofu doesn't hesitate at all, though. He drags me on to wake up all the mosquitoes. All at once I can hear it, too. The reason he's howling and pulling is a mysterious and faraway sound. It's beautiful and sad, like the call of a whale. I have heard whale songs on a CD, not in person underwater, although that would be amazing. Whale songs are full of yearning. No wonder Tofu is bursting with excitement. He pulls me over roots and rocks. I try not to trip, but Tofu can scamper even when there is no path, and I'm not as talented. I'm not really paying attention to where we're going, but that's okay since Tofu has his nose. As long as I still have him on the leash, he'll take me home. He even knows the word home, and if that doesn't work, I can always say cookies, and he'll drag me to Mrs. O's house, and that's close enough. The sound gets louder, but it remains puzzling. Could it be a moose, moaning very musically? Tofu, I say, pulling us to a halt. Slow down. We have to sneak up on whatever this is. Tofu doesn't really understand slow down, but I use all my muscle power and it does work. Suddenly, I know what the strange sound is, a saxophone. But who would be up playing it this early in the morning? I also know where the sound is coming from. The old quarry. It fills up with water in the spring and summer, but Mom says that I'm not allowed to swim in there, even though other people do. There's a junked car in there under the water. You can see it in the fall when the water gets low. Long before I was born, a boy jumped in from the tall rocks and never came out. Mostly teens hang out there in the summer, but I think they gather at night, and they probably don't play the saxophone. We sneak up on the tallest rocks, and I see him. The person playing the lonely music has a scruffy beard and old clothes. He's sitting on a huge chunk of granite on the far side, overlooking the deep green water. Tofu wags his tail. He wants to run down and meet the man who is making the sound. Tofu thinks that everybody is a friend. Mrs. O, the mailman, random strangers, Colby, who smells of a cat and knows Tofu's scratching spots. The man was playing his saxophone way better than Jenny Anderson plays hers in our school band, but that's not too hard. Probably shouldn't say that since I'm only in chorus, but it is the truth. The saxophone man leans his head back and outpours this amazing sound. His eyes are closed. That's a good thing, since even behind our boulder, I feel obvious. I hold Tofu's collar and just listen. The air smells like old campfire smoke and pine mist. The music echoes off the rocks and across the water. I can't go any closer because he's definitely a stranger, so I just hold Tofu's collar as tight as I can and wonder. Who is this man and why is he playing in the old quarry for nobody at all? Maybe he lives here, but what would he eat? Mushrooms and berries? Here's a chanterelle mushroom. Go ahead and eat it. This is a anaminta mushroom. Do not eat it. Really, you shouldn't eat any mushrooms that you find in the forest because you never know what kind they are. It can be very difficult to tell. Gooseberries, eat them. Deadly nightshade? No, no, no. You have to be very careful and smart to survive in the wild. You shouldn't eat berries that you find in the wild either, not without someone who definitely knows what's going on. At the exact moment that I decide we should sneak away, Tofu decides to join in the band. He tilts his head back and lets out a long, mournful howl, followed by some impressive yelping. The saxophone man stops playing and looks around. "Hey," he says, "who's there?" His voice is friendly, but I don't answer because I'm too busy dragging my dog in the opposite direction from the one he wants to go in. "Home," I say to Tofu. "Cookies!" Tofu wags his tail at me. He usually is hungry after all. And off we go. I run so fast I can barely breathe, and before I know it, we're back on Buckle Street. I can hear the distant sound of the saxophone. I'm sorry I had to run away. At least he's playing again, whoever he is. Buckle Street is beginning to stir. I wave at Mr. Anderson, who is picking the paper up off his porch. I almost tell him to wake Jenny so she can hear the magical music and get some playing tips, but it's like I have a secret I don't want to share. Besides, unless you're really listening for the sound of the sax, it's hard to hear now. Somebody on the next block is mowing the lawn way too early. Cars are out. There's even a distant chainsaw. I hear Mrs. O grinding her morning coffee as I walk by her house, and all the sounds are mixed into one sound soup with many flavors. When I get to our house, Mom's up and out on the sun porch. This surprises me since she's not a morning person at all. "Did you and Tofu take a walk?" she asked, looking at me over her mug of tea. I come up the steps, grinning a grin that says, "What does it look like?" Not sure how I want to explain. She probably wouldn't like it if she knew that I let Tofu take me to the old quarry where there was a man, even if he was talented. Instead, we make muffins with chocolate chips and don't stay much. After breakfast, Mom decides to do some sketching, and I join her. I want to see if I can draw music. Maybe that would be a way of telling her. Later in the morning, when it feels like afternoon because I've been up so long, Dad comes to take me to his house. I'm so excited since I've seen Bird only once since we got her, and she must miss me a lot. Dad's in the white convertible, so as we drive to Ottenbury, I put on my red sunglasses and pretend I'm a movie star with my hair whipping all over my face. For lunch at the condo, we eat Dad's amazing homemade chicken soup without Richard. I pretend to be slightly disappointed that he's not there because sometimes I am polite. The truth is, as long as Dad and Bird are here, I'm happy. "Have you named her yet?" I ask. "No," says Dad. "We're just calling her Bird for now. Maybe you can think of something." Bird walks adorably up and down my leg and picks at my sock. All kinds of names race through my head, but none of them sound like her. Marcella? No. Daphne? No. Lena? Lainey? Lolly? Nope, nope, nope. "It's okay," Dad smiles. "Take your time. Maybe she'll tell you herself." In the meantime, Dad shows me the pictures he took in Venice, since he finally made prints of them. "This is the flooded piazza," he tells me. "Piazza San Marco. This is where I bought you that lovely striped blown glass." And Venice looks really cool, the way there are so many bridges and canals. I hope it doesn't sink into the sea very fast, so I can go there too, someday. Bird the Unnamed sings along to the music on the radio, and there is a saxophone in it, and suddenly I want to tell my secret to Dad. He listens very carefully the way he always does. He doesn't tell me that I shouldn't have gone down to the quarry. Instead, he nods thoughtfully and listens to the story of my early morning mystery. "Who is he?" I ask. "Where did he come from?" Dad smiles and shrugs. "Not all who wander are lost," he says, getting up to do the dishes. That's a saying from J.R.R. Tolkien. We read all the Lord of the Rings books together last year. While I wipe the table and Bird sings her heart out back in her cage, I wonder where the saxophone man will play his music next, and who will hear him. Here are the pictures and her vase. My dad's photos are cool. Unheard music is different from unsung songs or unpainted paintings. It's more like how Venice exists, even if you've never been there, or even never heard of it. It's still there, and it's still beautiful. My Venetian glass that my dad brought back for me. He says I'll appreciate it when I'm older, but I already do. And that is the end of where we are going to read today. Join me tomorrow for Chapter 8, bird needs flying lessons. We've been reading The Accidental Adventures of India McAllister by Charlotte Agell, published by Henry Holt and Co. My name is Sarah Mari. I'm one of the librarians at Portland Public Library in Portland, Maine. Thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye.